Three, two, one.
Yo, 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 what is up? Back at it again with the Fourth Wall podcast. I am here with my co host, Zutenheimer, and we have a very special guest today, an old friend of mine who's going to remain anonymous. We can just call her M. But yeah, we wanted to have her on to talk about her plight with drug addiction, specifically her time up in Kensington with all the crazy shit going on up there. So yeah, I won't say much more. We'll just get into it. How you guys doing?
Good, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Hell
thanks
yeah.
for coming on, and I'm really excited. I know Luke knows you a lot better, obviously, so I'm really excited to hear what kind of experiences you went to. I think we kind of all know what Kensington's like. I think from what we've seen online or on the news or whatever, but hearing it firsthand is always better. It's kind of like the Skid Row of the East Coast, I guess we would call it, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a little rough, but it is what it is. I think it's interesting for me because I like I'm from North Carolina. Like there's I don't me personally, I never saw anything like that in North Carolina and
Me neither.
my mom's job moved to the Philadelphia area, and I when she moved, I was like, "I'm not moving with you. I don't care." And then as I was doing drugs more and more, someone was like, "Well, you can go to Kensington." And I was like, "Oh, oh." And so then of course I'm like calling my mom and I'm like, "Mom, I'm gonna come stay with you." And so it was kind of interesting. It was an interesting transition up there for me.
So before you moved up there, like what age were you when you started doing drugs?
Um I started drinking and smoking weed at 14. And then by the time we graduated high school, I had definitely had a Percocet problem. And then it kind of just went off from there. I went to treatment for the first time at 20 and did my 30 days, was back in 3 weeks after, I went and was like, I'm never coming back. Like, fuck this. And then 3 weeks later, they were like, what happened? I was like, hey. Um, so I did that and was back home for a little bit and then moved to Pennsylvania in probably 2018, 2019. Um, so yeah, definitely started in high school, kind of.
When did you sorry, go ahead, Zoo. What
Oh,
were
I
you gonna
was just
say?
gonna say that's it's funny because that's literally identically my story. I started smoking weed at 13 and drinking 13 and 14. Started doing pills by the time I was graduating from high school. I was doing Vicodins and Noxies and stuff like that. And then yeah, it's funny. It's very, very, very similar story to you. And then I, 20 or about 20 is when I first tried to get clean and go to rehab, and that didn't work. And yeah, very funny.
I relate a
Yeah.
lot to that too. Started when I was 15. By the time I was 16, I had tried pretty much everything except like meth, crack, or heroin slash fentanyl. And then at 19, I went to treatment, and then same deal. Within like a month or two of leaving treatment for the first time, I was fucking back, like
Well, I
shaking up a
think
storm from
it
alcohol.
was
Like,
sad. People were like, "You'll be back," and I'm like, "Damn!" Like they knew, and I was like, "Damn, okay."
I will never forget my first rehab when I was 19, and this girl was maybe like 25, and she was like, "What are you in here for?" And I was like, like Xanax, cocaine, alcohol, or stuff like that." And she just like laughed at me. She's like, "Yeah, that's cute." She's like, "Here's what's gonna happen to you, most likely. You're gonna keep on using. You're not gonna listen to anybody here. Then you're gonna get bored of all the pussy shit you're doing. Pardon my language. And then you're gonna get strung out on heroin in your mid to late 20s. And if you survive, you'll finally get sober." And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like fucking prophesized my life. But anyways, so when was the first time you got into IV drugs?
um, 2018.
It was about the
So
time
I
you moved up there.
I would have been probably 22, 23 ish.
Okay.
I don't know. My math's not good. I'd have to math that
No,
out.
no worries. No worries. Could you
Early
could you share a
20s.
little bit about the transition from like pain pills to like heroin slash fentanyl? Like, because
Yeah,
for I
I
know
think
most
a lot of people that have never used those would. It's interesting to get into that topic because even when I first started using like opiate pills, I told myself I would never jump over to heroin, and then I told myself from there I would never use needles. And I think a lot of people would find it totally crazy to even think of ever doing a power like a hard drug or and using a needle, but let alone messing with like pills to start with. So I think it is giving people an understanding of how that slow grinding procedure where your morals are whittled away by the addiction. What was that like for you?
I like that, the morals whittled away. I think for me, like, it was always it always resulted from, like, desperation, right? So, like, you're on pills and, like, all of that's cool, and then, one day it's, like, hard to find pills, and I know I think Luke's familiar with this, but, like, at the time, we were kinda ordering stuff off the dark web, and so dude's like, "Oh, like, I don't have any pills, but I have this." And it's like, "Oh, like, okay." And I think that for me, it went from like, "Oh, okay, I'm crushing this pill," to like, "I'm taking this powder straight out of a bag." I think it like blurred these lines where then it's like in the back of my head, I'm still standing on like, "Oh, but it's not heroin." You know what I mean? So then that gets to a point where like, okay, now we can't get that. So then someone's like, "Oh, well, I don't have that, but like, if you go out this way, you can get heroin." And it's like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, I get it. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is like the same thing I'm already doing. And then I think it jumped to the needle because it's funny because I sat in treatment. When I went to treatment the first time, I'd never used a needle. Like, people laughed at me and I was like, okay, whatever. Haha, joke's on me. And like, I was around people that did use needles and they were like, yeah, like this dope is trash, blah, blah, blah. Like, but at least, you know what I mean? And they were like, oh, try and shoot it. You might get like it, it'll take you farther. And I'm like, okay. And like, that I think, like, that happened to me, like, I was like, "Okay," like, and so people would, like, hit on me, and I was like, use the needle for me, and I'd be like, "Okay," but it wasn't something I would, like, do myself, and then
Hmm.
I was hanging out with a kid that I had met in treatment, and he was an IV user, and he was like, "Here, like, I'll show you down here, like, let me help you, here," and, like, that kinda is how that it was always just an act of, like, desperation. Whatever the next step was, it was out of a desperation.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. That's especially I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I started um, when the OxyContin kind of epidemic was going on, and what happened to a lot of people is that just what you're talking about is they cut off the supply of OxyContin, and now you have all these people that are hopelessly addicted already, and what are they going to do? But then they find out that the thing that they were paying $60-$80 for is like a $20 bag of heroin that they can, and that's the only thing they can get anyways. So I think that's true of a lot of people. Another thing that you mentioned, I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately is like this thing called social contagion, I guess. Um, and it's this concept, and I think like it's kind of like a fancy word for like the if your friends walked off a bridge, would you idiom? Um, how big of a factor that just who you're around plays uh, when you're addicted and into how far you'll go because I did kind of the same thing where I was hanging around people that were shooting up, but I would never cross that line. And then slowly by being around them more and more, becomes normalized to a point where then eventually buddy of mine did it for me for the first time, and that was kind of that from that point forward. So I definitely feel what you're saying.
So, by the time you got into the thick of all this stuff, was all the normal heroin dope pretty much gone? And was it like the fentanyl scene, or did you witness like the transition a lot of people talk about from doing like, the old school, like normal heroin to only fentanyl being available?
So when I was home, it was heroin, and it was it was different, honestly. And so when I was home, it was heroin, and like I had seen like people overdose. I think fentanyl was kind of starting to hit down here. That was probably like set 2017. It was kind of right around that time, and then that was part of why I went to Philly because I feel like the dope down here had like fallen off, and I was like, oh, and that's and then people were like, "Oh, like, you can always get dope in Philly." And I was like, "Oh," and that was part of it, like, I feel like the dope fell off down here, so I went to Philly, and then when you get there and it was all fentanyl, and I feel like I was scared, honestly. Like I did have like the fear. Like I'd had a couple friends die at that point, and I was like, "Oh, like that's kind of crazy. Like you're just doing straight fentanyl." But like at the time, like would have never guessed that that would be the only thing out. You know what I mean?
That makes me think of there's this guy that FaceTimed me on Instagram, just some random dude that was like watching my reels and wanted to talk. He was very out there. He was doing meth and Fetty like on screen, I guess, while we were in a FaceTime call. He said he was a member of the Hells Angels and was in all types of shit. But I was like, oh hey man, like you want me to send you some fentanyl test kits? Like I want you to be safe. And then he looked at me. He was like, why? So I can ensure that it's pure fentanyl. And he was like, heroin won't touch me, baby. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh shit, yeah. I'd realized like that people like want their
Yeah.
fentanyl when they get to a certain period. So I guess piggybacking off the last question, what was the transition from watching the xylazine, which Philly is like, I guess known for now, that got into like mainstream news and like mainstream drug culture from like these people doing the Fetty fold as they call it, or the opioid shamble. I guess that can
Yeah.
happen from fentanyl alone, but like the necrotizing the necrotic flesh wounds, everything. What was the switch from like, did you start hearing rumors of like, yo, like what is
Yeah.
this stuff? Like
So for me, I got out of like that whole scene the end of 2021 really. And I think that that was kind of right when it was like starting to be at its like peak potential, like getting there, you know what I mean? And so I remember like the one girl had her whole arm like just like open wounds, and she was like, "Oh, it's because so in Kensington, like it's you can just go like you walk down the street and there's someone on like every other corner and they have a different set, and so they have a different stamp on each bag, right? So one set will be like Call of Duty, one will be like whatever it is. And so if you go up there and you're talking about dope, like you'll be like, "What's good?" And they'll be like, "Oh, like this at this corner is good." And it's like, "Okay." And so she had her whole arm like open, and she was like, "Oh, like this is because they had crocodile at blah 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 street." And I was like, "Oh, damn." Like, okay. And so I was like, "Damn, I'm never going there." And then it kind of like more and more people were having it. And I know like at that point some of these like sets would be like trank dope, trank dope, trank dope, because they kind of solicit you as you walk by. They're like, try this dope, and they'd be like trank dope. And I think that, like, a couple times I had gotten a bag that had it, and it made me feel like pure panicky, and so I always, like, avoided it, and, like, for me, I'm always kind of like I like consistency, so I was never the kind of, like, drug addict that was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go walk up here and try this, I'm gonna try this." Like, I always, like, went to the same set, knew what I wanted, knew who I was dealing with, and so I tried not to, like, venture out too much, and, like, so I always kinda was like, "Oh, okay, like, if I go here, I'm not getting that, and I'm not gonna have, like, a full day panic attack." Like, I just used to make me, like, panic, right? And so but it's interesting, though, because then when I got clean, people are having, like, different withdrawal symptoms from xylazine than they are opiates because
Hmm.
it's not an opiate. It's like an animal, like, similar to, like, a barbiturate,
Well,
and
and the
so
Narcan isn't bringing them back either,
yeah,
because yeah, it's
terrifying.
yeah.
yeah, so it's like the Narcan, like, what I've heard now is that the Narcan will, like, you're breathing, but you're not necessarily, like, awake. So it's like it's
Okay.
harder to tell if someone's, like, actually, like, been revived, if they're gonna overdose again, because they might be breathing, but they don't, like, pop up like you see in the, like, videos, or you Narcan someone and they're like, "I'm alive!" Like, anyway.
And
Yeah.
pissed off that they're not withdrawing.
Yeah, and so but yeah, and so I think for me, I knew that I had, like, whatever I'd been getting had xylazine in it, because when I went to get clean, I had, like, a totally different withdrawal experience than anything I'd ever experienced. It was, like, horrible. It was a lot more um I had a lot of, like, heart problems when I got clean, which I've never had, like, high blood pressure, like, I've always been, like, reasonably healthy, and so this last time they found, like I just was so sick, like, I couldn't like, I was throwing up every single day, all day, I couldn't keep anything down, so my poor mom kept taking me to the hospital, and they, like, found strain on my heart, I was seizing, like, all this stuff, and was just, like, fainting, and that's to me, that's how I knew that, like, that was in the drugs I was getting. And then I saw, you know, within the year after, I saw studies come out that, like, think they said like 90% of the dope samples they were testing from the area had at least like some xylazine in it. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I was like, okay, that explains a lot.
That's so
Have
funny.
you ever been through alcohol or benzo withdrawals before?
No.
Okay, I was curious if you could maybe compare, like, was the xylazine withdrawal similar to those? If you haven't gone through that, that, I guess we can't do an apt comparison there. But like, I'm imagining traditional dope sickness from the opiates, like from the fentanyl, and then on top of that, like, it just wow, yeah, I'm trying to
It
imagine
just
what
it
It's
just
hard because
xylazine
adds
we
to
none
withdrawal.
it.
of us are familiar with like what a barbiturate withdrawal would be like, right? Because isn't it is it a pure barb? I should do some research here on that while you guys
Yeah,
are
maybe you could
chatting.
check on that.
I
Barbiturate
don't know. I know that,
withdrawal
like,
is
I
very
think
similar to
this
benzo
last go
withdrawal.
around of getting clean, it was such a long experience. Like, I feel like with opiates, people are like, "Oh, like, you're
That
really out of it within a week." You're like, "Okay," like, you feel like absolute garbage, but, like, you can get through it. So for me, like, my clean date is the 30th of November, right? And I was in and out of the hospital. I think my mom took me like, I was in and out of the hospital probably, like, every week until at least Christmas. And
yeah,
so it was
that
2 weeks out that they found strain on my heart. They kept me as a, like, heart attack risk in the hospital, and, like, I literally threw up every single day for, like,
Um,
at least a month and a half.
so this is
yeah.
something interesting. So xylazine is actually an analog of clonidine.
Oh, wow.
And
It's an
that's
alpha
clonidine is used to
A2
treat high blood
adrenergic.
pressure. So
Yes, I'm
that's
very familiar.
probably if you're putting a you know blood pressure treatment medication on someone that doesn't need it, um,
And when you come
and
off, your
then you
blood
come off
pressure is
of it.
high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
clonidine binds at your adrenaline receptors. It's not to be like all like, that's
Hmm.
really like super nerd. It's an alpha A2 adrenergic agonist.
And
So
that
it
could be
like
where that panicky feeling you got came from, is that it's really exciting your adrenaline receptors.
oh,
So,
that's I was gonna ask about the panic next because I feel like it would be the opposite of that. It's supposed to block your adrenaline and really calm you down
okay.
and sedate you. So that's why it makes sense why the withdrawals would really fuck up your heart and your blood pressure. And it reminded me of benzo withdrawals as well because those last like about a month for me at least, and a lot of people I've talked to or been through them with. They're lipophilic. They store in your fat cells and just take a long time to come out. I was gonna ask about the panicky feeling. Was it like what kind of Zoot was saying? Was it like a speedy, like sort of like rush to the high that made you like a stimulant type feeling that made you panic, or was it just a sense of doom almost that like
It was a
oh whoa
sense of doom. It was a
okay
sense of doom. It wasn't like an immediate, like, it was like I'd, like, do a bag and I'd be, like, hanging out, and then all of a sudden I would feel like, just, like, panic. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, it's been a while too,
doing
but
very
it just, I
well.
know it made me feel, like, so stressed. Like, there was that.
I know what that feeling is, and I think I've experienced exactly what you're talking about.
And it might not have been xylazine. I have no, you know what I mean? I have no idea. I always just had a
Do you
feeling
think
that was
some
what
of
it
it was
was.
internally, like that you had fear that you had gotten a bad bag and that was
No,
triggering? Okay, no, okay.
I don't think so. Cause I don't know. I don't think so. Cause I think it was, like I said, like, I always bought the same thing. I was kind of like,
Yeah.
always like, I'm just gonna stick to what I know.
So I'm definitely gonna get into like the recovery stuff, for sure. And like Zoo, also you ask any questions that come to your mind or anything, but I'm really interested in like building up the sort of background information here. So when you were out there, was it like give me like an example or a walkthrough, I guess, of like your day to day? Were you ever homeless at any point in time, or were you like
No.
staying with your mom and then kind of like going out to get your stuff and then coming back, or were you hanging out in like trap houses or like
Well,
oh
so no, I wasn't homeless, which I feel like not being homeless in Kensington, I feel like it makes me almost feel like I can't speak on what Kensington like really is like because like I wasn't out there every day. Like I could go shower. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
and so no, but like my whole day went to like getting high. So my mom
yeah,
lives with no traffic. It's like 20 minutes outside the city. Once that 76 traffic hits, it's like a 45-minute drive. And so I would drive down to the city every single day. I would drive down there every single day. Sometimes I would go
To
down
get
multiple
your
times a
stuff.
day. And I mean,
Hmm.
it honestly like Kensington is dangerous. I'm not like it's dangerous. It's kind of scary. It's like a culture shock if you've never seen anything like it before, but like I saw the same people so often, right? So like I kind of had like I had my little friends that were out there. Like, there's this one lady, Jamaica. I still talk to her. She's crazy as hell, but like, she would always kind of like look out, like if I saw her, and like, she was really like, she was cool. And like, I would see Jamaica, and like sometimes, so my mom, my mom is like, I think my mom is like the funniest lady. My
Mhm.
mom is funny, and she had this dog, and it's a black lab, and so I would take her dog with me and go cop with her black lab in Kensington, and, like, so all the homeless people knew Dumplin'. They'd be like, "Dumplin', Dumplin'," and they'd see her coming, and they'd run, and they'd, like, hug the dog, and, like, I saw the same
Just get
people
the
every
dog
day,
a
but then
contact high.
it was just it was nice, honestly, because they
Yeah,
looked
no.
forward to seeing her, and I, like, you know what I
Oh, yeah.
mean? And,
Hell yeah.
so I used to go out there, and then sometimes, like, on my drive back, it's funny because I'm not from Philadelphia, so I would, like, get off the highway to, like, shoot dope and end up, like, stumbling on some, like, really cool spot, and, like, it would, like, overlook the city, and I was like, "Alright," and, like, I, like, got off to get high the one time and found this little, like, a river spot, and so I would take the dog, and I would throw a ball, and then I'd go home, and then, like, it was, like, the same thing every day, and then, like, so I think for me, when it would be, like, gnarly is if I had no money, right? Like, because then you're dope
Yeah.
sick, and now you're like, "Oh, fuck," like, or if for whatever reason the, like, set I was going to didn't have anything, and they'd be like, "Wait," so I would, like, hang out in the city, and I mean, I wasn't out there often, like, I really would go cop and, like, come back, but, like, I was out there enough that, like, you just kinda never know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Imagine. So the Wild West.
Can
it
you
is a little bit, and I think that,
describe?
like
Oh, sorry.
Tell me. No, tell me.
I was gonna ask. Can you describe like it seems like there's like an open air drug market area of Kensington, but then I'm
Mm,
sure that there's also just like gangs or like who is the primary like person you were picking up from, or like what is that situation like out there? Who's supplying it? What is the transactions like? Are there like trap houses that you would go to, that, or is it like well known, or do you have to know someone? Can you just kind of give
no.
us
Yeah. So, no,
environmental, yeah.
it's not like that. Like, I think I mentioned, like, people just stand outside on the corners, and so I think that, like, my understanding of it is that it's not gangs. It's kinda more broken up on, like, what street you're from or, like, what section you're from, and so if you're like, "Oh, I want this dope," like, people will be able to tell you, like, "Go to this street." And so I mean, I don't know, like, I always kinda minded my business. I didn't ask questions about, like, who is the, like, main supplier, but, like, there would just be guys out there, and there would, like, be multiple guys, and sometimes but yeah, you just stand outside, and they serve you bags, and
Real
they
easy.
always have a lookout, so, like, if they see police coming, they'll yell something up the street, and then you know to just kinda keep it moving and come
So it's
back
kind of like
20
The
minutes later.
Wire.
I don't know, I never saw it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in The Wire they show Baltimore, and that's kind of one of the first like open air drug markets that the United States
Yeah.
had, and
It's similar to
they have
Baltimore.
runners and like people standing outside, and
Mhm.
they would shout out stuff like they would give it a name so that you knew what the batch was, or yeah, all sorts of stuff. It just sounds
Yeah,
exactly like what you're talking about.
it's just like that, and I mean, I copped in Baltimore, like, a handful of times, and it's very similar. Very yeah.
Were you guys familiar with Andrew Callahan, Channel 5?
Yeah, his Kensington.
Yeah.
I was kind of, when she was talking about bringing Dumpling down there to the hood. Um, it kind of shows like off some of the humanity that is still there, because a lot of times we're
Absolutely.
seeing the worst of the worst, but you kind of like you kind of mentioned that you were seeing the same people every day, and there was some sense of normalcy,
I
and
mean, there is, and I think that, like, my thing is wait, again, this is before that, like, before people obviously had drug problems, but I think that with xylazine, like, it's kind of people aren't even, like, awake. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, you could see the same person every day, but, like, you might I don't know. So, but, like, there was, like, humanity down there. So they had, like I can't think of the word, but it was a church, and they would give, like, clean needles there and offer, like, services, Luke, what is the word I'm looking for?
A home reduction center.
Yes, thank you. And two of the people that worked in the harm reduction center got married, and they
Huh.
blocked the street off and got married outside prevention point. So all the people that they serve, so I
Whoa.
mean, I'm like standing there getting like served dope during their wedding, but like it just
That's
you know what I mean? Like, that's
Beautiful.
nice,
yeah.
like, they had a wedding out there, so, I mean, there
That's
was, like,
beautiful.
humanity and, like I think the biggest thing with Kensington for me was that, like, I wasn't homeless, and some days I'm sure I looked homeless, but, like, sometimes I didn't always look homeless, and, like, so if you don't look homeless, the police are gonna go mess with you. I had this old, like, 2007 Mercedes-Benz with North Carolina tags, and I always was like, "I'm gonna get pulled for this." I was always like,
Or,
"I'm gonna
"What are
get
you
pulled."
doing up here? Yeah, like, you don't belong here." Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
The reason I brought up Andrew Callahan, he's a investigative journalist, has a YouTube channel called Channel 5. He had an episode on Kensington where he went up there and interviewed some people, and he actually got linked through some corner boys. I think they linked him up. He got up the food chain and did a very like anonymous sort of interview with these guys who were masked up and did voice changers and stuff that were called the Trank Brothers, and they had massive amounts of xylazine, and they were talking about how they pretty much ran the xylazine market up there. And of course, every minor plug wants to claim that they run shit, right? Like for everybody that says they run shit, there's probably two more guys ahead of him really run. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
there's someone that they're getting it from too. Like they aren't
Yeah,
making the
there's
stuff.
always yeah, and the Xylazine brothers, as they called themselves, they were saying they were getting it from several crooked veterinarians up there because, like as we discussed, yeah, Xylazine is a veterinary tranquilizer. So, um, let me think. Did you see a lot of crack or meth use up there, stimulant use? Because I'm imagining like a horde
Yeah.
of people asleep from the xylazine, and then you have tweakers like run around trying to like pilfer their pockets and shit, and like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yes, there was a lot of crack. Meth honestly, like, when I was out there, meth wasn't really big out there. That wasn't at least I didn't like, people were never like, "Oh," like, you know what I mean? But there was crack and,
Yeah,
like, you asked about, like, abandoned houses, like, sometimes, yeah, like, certain, like, blocks would be like, "Oh, go stand in this house real quick," and you have no like, sometimes you had been there waiting for, like, an hour at a time, and people are just, like, smoking crack around you. I think that's the interesting thing about, like, being in Kensington that was, like, culture shock to me, like, where I'm from, like, you don't, like, sit on the side of the road and shoot dope, you know what I mean? There, you can, like, shoot dope on the sidewalk, smoke crack on the sidewalk, and I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Okay, this is what we're doing." But, yeah, there was crack up there, and most of the blocks would sell both, you know?
did you ever? I know I asked if you had bins or alcohol withdrawal. Did you ever get into any other substances while you were doing? I mean, I'm sure you did, like to get the escalation to becoming an IV, like fentanyl or trank user. But did you, while you were up there, was it pretty much your main priority just to get well with the Fetty, or did you ever branch out or mix it with anything else?
No, I really didn't branch out, like, at all. I was like this is, like, gonna sound funny because I was, like, shooting fentanyl, but I was, like, scared to do crack.
No, I feel you. It makes sense. It makes sense. Um, there's a bunch of recovery esque questions I want to get into, but before I guess we make that transition, can you tell us maybe a story of like one of the most maybe two stories here? One being one of the most dangerous or scary encounters you had, one of the just sketchiest things that happened to you up there. And
Yeah.
then well yeah, let's start with that, and then I can ask you other questions after.
I remember, like, I copped dope the one time, and I was walking back to my car, and there was a guy walking probably, like there were, like, 2 guys walking in front of me, probably, like, 4 or 5 feet in front of me, and I was walking, like, kinda, like, directly lined up behind them. Does that make sense? Did I paint the right visual? Like, I was just
Yeah.
walking behind them, and at pretty much the same time, like, the guy me and the guy in front of me both, like, felt the bullet go past our head. And they were like, "They're shooting up the block, they're shooting up the block," and it was, like, up a couple blocks from, like, where I had walked from, and so one of the guys was on the corner, saw me, that knew me, and he was like, "You gotta get out of here, like, you gotta get out of here, blah, blah, blah," and he was like, "Drive through the park," and in my head, the guy in front of me, like, drops to the ground and is like, "They're shooting," and I just kept walking because I was like, "If I'm gonna get hit, I'm gonna get hit, like, this is the time," like, and then,
Shit.
the guy's like, "Drive through the park so you don't get, like," and I was like I remember being like, "God, I don't wanna drive through the park, like, I already copped, I'm gonna get pulled over driving through the park," like like oh, but
Priorities.
that was a little scary for me, and, like, I think the other thing that's scary was that, like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Kensington that doesn't make the news, right? Like,
Hmm.
at one point when I
Mhm.
was out there, there were rumors that, like, I can't confirm or deny about, like, a guy that would, at nighttime, like, find like blonde, unhoused women and take them to train tracks and slit their throat. And so like people at the time were like, "Hey, be careful, like you kind of fit that description." And I'd always be like, "Damn," like, you know what I mean? I was like, "Damn." And then at one point there was like a I think it was like hepatitis A outbreak out there from
Oh,
like all the
jeez.
like poop and feces, and I remember being like scared to death. And then COVID, I was like
Oh yeah.
Lysoling dope bags after I bought them. Like I was like, I'm not gonna get the COVID from these dope bags. Like that was like a time. Like,
That's
Oh, that's
funny.
I gotta put that when we drop this video, I'm gonna put that in, like, the description, like, I'm gonna put a couple keywords about what it's about, like, Lysoling dope bags. It's gonna be
Yeah.
one of them for sure.
In
That's
hindsight,
amazing.
that is hilarious. Of like,
yeah,
hey,
it is. It's
I'm
funny
shooting
now,
up
but at the
this,
time I was like, ah.
unknown drug concoction intravenously, but I'm spraying down the bag for COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
the things we do.
Oh my goodness. So you mentioned going up there one time a day, maybe multiple times a day to cop. I know fentanyl does not nearly have the legs, you know what I mean, the half life, the duration that heroin and other traditional opioids have. So would you cop enough for like how many times a day did you have to get well? How many times a day did you have to shoot up?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, but what I can tell you is that every time I went out there, if it was like, if it worked in my favor, I was buying like a bundle of dope at a time, which is 16 of the little wax bags, or that's what it was at the time. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, I think it's different in different areas too.
Yeah.
That terminology has always interested me. And then how
Hmm.
much is in a singular wax bag? Is it like a point or like a
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I have
Would
no
you
idea. I
shoot
think it
one of
depends
those
where
at a
you get it.
time, or were you shooting multiple bags at a time, or
Usually probably like 2.
okay?
okay.
So that's yeah. So I mean, you'd probably get what you got through the day with a bundle, right? I mean,
Yeah.
fentanyl is so fast. Like, yeah, it's not hard to shoot 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a day, and yeah.
Yeah.
So I was curious. Um, I know you mentioned Jamaica. Are there any, and you can change names too if you want to protect anyone's like privacy or just like and I'm not trying to like humanize anybody by any means whatsoever, but some of the most interesting characters I've ever met in my life have been people either from the street that I was primarily smoking meth or crack with, or just people I've copped from when I got out of the game myself. Even while I was in the game, I don't know, just the drug game introduces you to some cool cats and some wild people. Are there any people that stick out to you that from your time up there that you have any stories about or any like character profiles on?
No, I don't think I do. Jamaica was my favorite. Honestly, I love Jamaica, and I don't talk to her much anymore, but we still like keep in touch. I mean, there were people that I saw like every day for a while, and I know like my daughter's dad is still up there in the area. He doesn't get high. He just is from Philadelphia, and he sees people now and they'll still like ask about me and stuff, and like I think that's nice. I always kinda, like, ask him, I'm like, "But how are they? Like, do you want me to send you $5 so you can buy 'em food?" And he's like, "No." Like, "No." Like, "Okay."
Did he get so? Did you guys use together? Your
No.
daughter's father and you? Okay.
No, he wasn't using drugs. He was hanging out in the area. He was and
Hmm.
so, yeah. That's how that worked
Yeah,
out.
no, we can leave it at that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think I pick up down. Um, so you mentioned you went to rehab when you were 19 or 20, 20, I believe you said.
Mhm.
Then you went back shortly after. So, from the time you got out of the initial rehab stint and went to Kensington, how when did you go to rehab next? Like, what started your recovery journey while up in Kensington? Like, and were you always thinking like as you were doing this, like, man, like this is gonna come to a head one day, like I gotta stop, or was there like a honeymoon love period where you're like, nah, I'm gonna shoot up till I die, or like, can you kind of walk us through the trajectory of your recovery journey?
So, I did 2017, I did 30 days in treatment twice, and, like, the second time I went, I did outpatient, I had 5 months clean. And then when I first relapsed, it was in Florida, which is actually like it was like the epitome of not a good time. Like Florida was cool when you were sober, and then once you were getting high in Florida, I was like, I gotta get out of the state. I was like, I gotta get out of the state. So, and then I don't think I went to treatment. So after those 2 sets of 30 days, I never completed treatment again after. Like, I became this, like, chronic AMAer. So my mom, like, lived outside the city, and there was a treatment center right a mile from her house. And every time I can't remember what year it was. I think it was probably, like, end of 2019 that I was like, "I'm gonna go get clean. I'm done this time. Like, I've gotta be done." And I would go and I would get there and I would pack enough stuff for a whole 30 days. And then I would get to like day 2, 3, 4, and I would walk home. I'd be like, I'm walking home. And within an hour of walking home, I would be back in Kensington. And like the people at the rehab would be like, I'd be like, and they'd be like, all right. Like, so I think I did that twice at the end of 2019. And then 2020, early 2020. It was right before COVID because they flew me down to Florida. And I remember I AMA'd and flew home. And then within like days, they shut the airports down. So I was like, oh my God, your dumbass almost got stuck in Florida. Like, you know what I mean? Um,
Wow.
so I did that, but like I AMA'd at day like 6. And then after that, I didn't try treatment again until I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. So I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, and like someone I knew from treatment in Florida was like, "Oh, come to this place in Florida. They actually will take pregnant people. Like you're gonna be fine." So I flew down there, and I didn't technically AMA, but I did detox for like 6 days, and then I was telling them I was like, "I have to get home. I have a prenatal visit." They, and so they discharged me and sent me home, and that didn't stick. And then when I had my daughter, child services was involved. And so they were like, all right, like what's your plan? What are we gonna do here? And I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna go to treatment. And so I went back to that place by my mom's house and AMA'd on day like 4. It was like, fuck. Like, I was like, oh my
Ooh,
God.
the AMA thing.
And yeah, so I mean, I don't think I had that like I think the like I had this like love phase where it was like I had no real responsibilities. Like I had my bad days, getting high sucks. Like at the end of the day, getting high kind of sucks. Like if you have like, I think that people that can like get high every once in a while, like I'm so happy for you. But like for me, it's like I don't function that way. Like I'm either like shooting dope every day or like it's not like I don't have it's like very all or nothing. And so it's
Mhm.
like trying to
Mhm.
maintain a like dope habit is horrible. Like I hate that. Like it's not fun. And so I knew like I enjoyed not having responsibilities, but like once I had my daughter, it was like it just shifted. And I remember like you asked me about people out there. So like if you don't know what you're gonna get, you kind of ask someone that's out there. You're like, yo, like what set is good? Like what stamp is good? Like where am I going? And like I asked the guy the one time, I was like, what's good out here? And he was like, detox. And I was like, all right, like where's that at? And he was like, no, like go to detox. And I was like, oh. I was like,
Shouts
oh
out to
shit.
that guy. Real ass
Yeah,
motherfucker.
right. Like I was like, God damn.
I That really, really reminds me of a time here in Atlanta. I was on a bunch of benzos and Lyrica and drinking alcohol, all that good stuff. And I went out and I got some pink fentanyl. It was like neon. It was like a hot pink powder, and I got some crack. And normally there's like some open air places down here. Normally I would until I got to know some people that were serving. I would just find like an unhoused person on the street who was looking like they were fiending just as bad as I was, and I'd be like, "Yo, take me to wherever's good. Like, show me what's up. I'll
I'll
break
buy
you
you
off."
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Totally. So I normally always came back and liked to use in the condo that I'm in right now because, like, I have a place to use in. Why would I want to use on the street? But these dudes would always want to kind of use with me. And so, long story short, I'm walking back one night. I'm very close to the condo. Right, I'm at the Midtown Dog Park here in Atlanta, and this guy's like, "Hey, let's duck over here and take a hit real fast." And I was like, "All right, fuck it." I had a clean crack stem, a fresh ball of Brillo, like Tour Boy, my pocket, and the confetti and the crack. And so I loaded up the crack pipe, and I gave him his or whatever. He had I don't really know what, like, it was strange in retrospect. It's like he was like watching me to get high, like for me to test the dope, I guess, first before he did it. But he was just a crack user. He didn't have any of the boy, right? Any of the Fetty. So I remember having the crack pipe loaded up, and then I was like, wait, you know what? I kind of want to mix these. And it's like I was asking his permission. He was like, go for it. And I was like, all right, cool. So I pulled out the bag of the pink Fetty and dipped the cracks in it like fun dip almost, and like swirled it around like to make sure that the top of the crack rock was like, and the tour boy was like coated in the pink powder. And then it was just one hit, like one big hit. And I remember reaching my hand out and going, wait, and then boom, lights out. And this was probably 2 a.m. Next thing I remember is I'm eyes open, the sun is starting to come up, and I'm in a stairwell, maybe like 10, 20 yards from where I had hit the pipe. I'm laying in the stairwell and all my shit had been stolen. They left my shoes and they left my car keys. Uh, I asked one of my big homies who's sober. He lived in Philadelphia for a while. And I was like, "Yo, what? Why did they leave my car keys and my shoes?" And he was like, "Honestly, bro, when I used to rob people, like he used to be in some crazy shit. Like I used to rob people. Sometimes you're running their pockets, you're taking all their shit, and you look at them and you feel kind of bad for a second, and you're like, nah, I'm gonna let him keep his shoes. I'm gonna let him keep his shoes." He was like, and as for the car key, they probably just didn't want a stolen vehicle on them. They already got your phone, your wallet, like they were good. Um, but yeah, and then the first thing I did though was pat my butthole to make sure it wasn't sore, to make sure no one had like, in all seriousness, to make sure no one had like sodomized me while I was out or like had their way with me, dude. So I'm like in the stairwell, pat my ass. I'm like, all right, I'm good, I'm good. Check my head, like I didn't fall down and crack my head open. And then in my like a little condom pocket of the jeans or whatever, still had the 2 bags of dope. That he did not grab the dope off me. I guess he couldn't find it.
Oh, I
And
bet you
I
were
was
like,
really
thank God.
Yes, I was relieved, dude. I was like, "Fuck all the other stuff. I still got my dope. I'm good to go, dude." And I still had the stem. Um, and yeah, dude. So that was just like, and then I went back to the house, obviously, and did like this, kept doing the same shit that had just put me out. I guess the alcohol and benzos had worn off at that point in time, so I could handle it better. Um, but where I'm going with this, why it reminded me of what you had just said, Mark, about the guy being like detox, is because I always wondered like who dragged me to the stairwell? Like, did anyone Narcan me? Was I just on the brink of death? Like, what had happened? So the next night, I'm running out, and I'm carrying boxes of like Jordans and like jewelry and stuff left over from like the trapping days, to trade with people because I didn't have my wallet, couldn't get anything out of the ATM. And I hear as I'm like shuffling around outside, I hear, "Yo, you good?" And I turn around and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yo, you got any hard? You got any boy? You got any hard? You got any boy?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then he stops for a second and goes, "Motherfucker, get back inside. I saved your life last night. You're making the block hot. You were dead on the street last night. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Bro, you saved me? Like, you're the one that dragged me to the stairwell. Like, I guess, like, fuck." I was like so shocked, and he was just like, "Nah, fuck no, I'm not serving you. Get back inside." Oh, I don't know.
Real.
Interesting. That was
Shout out to that guy
moral compass.
too.
Yeah, for real, for real. So,
Shout
okay,
out to the
sorry for
people
that.
that look out. Like some
Yeah.
people do look
Yeah,
out. I mean,
It probably
people I
sounds
remember it
crazy
like
to the outsiders, but there are
no,
some
but they
there is some good
do.
in that.
Like
Yeah.
I know,
they
like,
do.
the one
They
guy would
do.
tell me, like, whatever was going on, like, the one guy stopped me the one time and was like, "Hey, like, you have a knife on you?" And I was like, yeah." And he was like, "Okay, make sure you keep that knife on you. There's this guy, and he's coming around opening car doors when they stop at the light and stabbing whoever's in the driver's seat." And he was like, "Keep your
Oh my,
knife on you." So, like, people would tell me things to, like, help keep me safe. Like,
Yeah.
people look out.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The same homie I'm talking about that I ran by, like, that used to kick in doors and like rob people and whatnot. Excuse me. He said, when he got clean, he had several calls from his dope dealer while he'd been in rehab, and then he was like, "Oh shit, he's trying to like reach out and serve me." And so one day he just took the call to be like, "Hey, like, fuck off, like I'm not." And the guy was like, "Hey man, I'm glad to hear you're alive. I was just calling to let you know that like I'm not gonna serve you anymore. I got really worried about your habit, like you were going OD and like you yeah, I thought you were dead because you were gone for so long. So I'm glad to hear you're doing all right. And like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to serve you anymore."
Yeah.
He was like, "Nah, I'm sober, man. So no worries." But yeah, people truly do look out. It's crazy.
I have run into people like that too around here that like would just be like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a few days. Like, are you okay?" Like, not trying to like. Now, there are ones that will like incessantly call you if they haven't heard from you, and it's because they want to serve you again. But there are,
Yeah,
there are the ones that are just like genuinely concerned, and hey,
absolutely.
let's not, let's be real. There are some people that like shit's hard for them, and that's just the path that they chose, and that's how they make their money. And you know,
Got a
I
family to
get that,
feed.
and that doesn't mean that they're, a lot of them too are just born into it. That's all they know. That like their dad
Hmm.
served people, their brothers serves people, their uncles serve people. Like that's their lifestyle, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a heart. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I was wondering when you were mentioning, and we can, how are we doing on time? Yeah, we can start getting into the closing stuff here. I've got a handful more recovery questions, but this one's kind of been popping up in my head. Your mom, during all the time when you were getting high, you were staying at her house, and you were going out to cop and whatnot. Did she know what was up, and she just felt powerless to intervene, or was she like trying to believe, like, oh
Oh,
no, of course she's sober, or how did that whole thing work out?
my poor mom. I like bless that lady's heart. I love her. I think she knew. Because of the point that I lived with her, I'd been in and out of rehab, and so I think she knew, and I think she felt powerless. And my mom told me that she had accepted that I was gonna die, and
mm.
that she had like she just like she felt like I was gonna die, and that if I died, she was gonna accept that. And like I didn't live with my dad, but my dad like wrote me out of the will and like only took my calls when he felt like taking my calls, which wasn't often. And so my family like they knew. Um and it was hard. And I think so like when I told my mom that I was pregnant, she knew and she like immediately started crying. And I was like, "Oh." And then I realized she was like literally sad and I was like, "Ah." I was like, "Oh, no." And that's what she said. She
Oh,
said, "I thought I was going to have to raise that baby." And she was terrified of being like a grandmother raising her granddaughter because she thought I was going to not make it or like choose not to do it.
wow.
So I think she kind of knew. And then it like turn around, like you want to like bring it back to recovery. So like she did like when I like my withdrawal process where I was like deathly ill and just like that I mean that poor lady was like hand feeding me nausea meds and then I would like throw it up and my mom would always laugh. She'd be like, "If you throw this up again, I'm gonna get one and put it in your booty hole." And I was like, "Oh my God, no." Like, please don't. Like,
Vote for
and
the
so
nausea meds.
my daughter was 8 months old when I got clean. And so my mom like I was there, like, I had my daughter and, like, I was there and, like, I'd give her the bottles and I did the mom things and that was I worked, like I would wake up at, like, 5 o'clock in the morning so I could go cop in Kensington before my daughter woke up for the day so no one had to babysit her so I could, like, cop dope, you know what I mean? I was trying to make, like,
Yeah.
Hmm.
insanity work, so I was there, but,
Yeah.
like, my mom really, like when I got clean, I was so sick, like, she was doing, like, the taking care of me, taking care of my kid, like, keeping it all together, like I like, nothing would have been possible without her, you know what I
Did you
mean?
kick cold turkey?
Yeah.
Is
No. No, so well, I don't know. So, I told Luke this, and we kinda were like, yeah, that sucks." I was like so after I left detox, while I had a child services case, my child services worker was, like, really understanding. She was like, "Well, at least you tried, but, now we need another plan." And I was like, "Alright." And so I don't know, like, somewhere I saw, like, the ad for where you, like, go to the place and they put you to sleep and you wake up, like, cured, and
Oh,
I'm like,
rapid
"Bet."
detox.
I'm like, "Bet.
That's what
I'm
he
waking
did.
up cured." I was like, "Yeah." And
Did
then,
you go to Michigan?
yeah,
Yeah. You went
they
to
left me
advanced?
yeah,
That's where I went.
they left me at the Detroit airport in an
Crazy.
adult diaper on the ground waiting for a wheelchair.
Oh,
What?
oh,
Yeah. I was so violently ill when I left that place. So I
yeah.
I shit
go
my
and I'm
pants
like,
in the
"Alright."
Detroit airport. I talked about it last episode.
Oh my god. My flight got delayed, so I was sitting there, like, sick as a dog in a wheelchair in that airport. I was like, "Fuck this." Like, but I
It
don't know,
didn't
like,
work?
I would
You were
love to
sick?
hear No, I got home and I felt like shit, so I went to Kensington, and then
Oh
you're on
my
the shot, so
god.
it didn't even, like I wasn't high, I wasn't ill, I wasn't high, I was, like I I felt like
Wow.
it was horrible, like, horrible
Losing control,
experience,
yeah,
and
that's
so
in your
that
system.
lasted, like I wanna say, like, a week. Like, that lasted, like, a week where I was like, "Alright, I'm functioning," and me and my mom are like, "Alright, so, like, what the fuck do we do now? And I'm like telling my mom, I'm like, I can't go to detox because I'm on the Vivitrol shot, so they won't do anything for my withdrawal. I was like, so, and then I got sick. Like I would like stand up and like faint. I like couldn't like I don't know if it was like mix of like
I
Vivitrol,
wonder
getting
if it's
high.
because of the xylazine with the
That's what I was about
advanced.
to say.
I
At
don't
the
know, but I couldn't I know at one point my mom has this like very old house and I was in my bedroom and it had this like metal fireplace thing and I fainted and I landed like just so close to this metal like fireplace thing and I was like, "Bro, I'm going to die." So I told my mom. I was like, "Mom, like if I'm going to feel like shit using drugs, I'm going to feel like shit getting clean." And so I gave my mom the last of the shit I had, and I was like, "All right, like we're gonna tough this out." And Rapid sends you home with like a couple gabapentin, some like Zofran,
Mm-hmm.
and Tylenol or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom was like, "All right, all right." She was like, "This is what you got. This is what we're gonna do." And so I just took the little bit of comfort meds I had and threw up for a month, and
cold turkey.
that's
Holy
what we
shit!
got.
Yeah, you're tough. You're tough as hell for that.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I bet it was the xylazine for the way the advanced place or whatever. The fact that it didn't work for you because it worked like I don't want to speak for you, Zoot, but from the last episode, it worked like a charm for you.
Yeah,
What?
Coming off
but
of just
that's because I was just on methadone when I was getting off of pure methadone.
Oh.
So I think
Oh.
that's the treatment isn't meant for anything that isn't an opioid. So I wonder if if you were doing a lot of xylazine and we were basically like withdrawing from that. Maybe that's what I'm just theorizing
I
here,
haven't
but because
it
I've
was
yeah.
talked to a couple people that it worked really well for. You're one of the first people I've heard that's had a bad experience from there. It's really unfortunate to hear.
Oh, I mean, I don't blame the place because I called them and I was like, "Okay, like, I came home and I got high, what do I do?" And they were like, "You gotta tough it out, like, there's really not shit you can do." And I was like, "Cool, cool, cool."
Yeah, you're in your
Like,
last leg. Here.
"Cool."
I have so much
So
respect for you for doing that though, because that was going to be one of my questions. Was like, so the thing that you know why it stuck for you, or the final. Excuse me, God, I got these hiccups. Bringing this kombucha, having its way with
Oh
my gut.
yeah,
Um,
dang! Now I want a
you just,
kombucha.
I love kombucha, dude. This one's got caffeine in it. It's interesting.
Kombucha.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it sounds like that you just had it. You just made up your mind like this time has to be it. I'm gonna fight for my daughter. I'm gonna fight for my life. It reminds me of the end of Train Spotting where he's like, I choose life.
Mm-hmm.
I choose a mortgage. I choose a family.
so I think that, and that was like, you go to detox, you're uncomfortable, like, it is what it is. But like this time it was like I feel like because it kind of was like this like perfect storm of like I had a child service case. I was on the Vivitrol shot, so I couldn't go get subs. I couldn't go do anything. I had to just you had to tough it out. And
You
like
just
so and
rest.
that I think that because of that, like anytime I wanted to get high, like now it's like I'm, like, scared to drink alcohol because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my god, if I drink alcohol this one time and then I keep drinking alcohol, like, I'm not gonna have to go through withdrawals," and so I, like, won't do it. Like, I think that, like, traumatized me so bad. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." Like,
Yeah,
That's actually
I'm good.
awesome
yeah.
though. I wish I had that kind of fear and fear of God in me, like that would keep me away
I
from
have it as
whatever
well.
forever.
Yeah, I have a pretty intense cross addiction where if I do one substance, it pretty much leads to me wanting to mix all of them together, doing anything. I wanted so bad to be one of those guys that could quit hard drugs or could quit being a raging alcoholic and just smoke weed all day. But there's about 2 weeks of getting real high, and then weed feels like a cigarette, and it's not doing shit for me, even if I'm hitting dabs, and it's just not enough. And then I want what I really want, which is honestly just to mix uppers and downers together. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then add in some disassociatives. My favorite, stimulants, downers, and then disos are my jam. Opiates maybe too. I don't know. Fuck. Um, this is a this is a personal question. Well, I guess all these have been very personal. Like you don't have to answer this if you don't want. Like there's no judgment cast, obviously. Was your daughter born dependent on substances?
She was. So, when I had her, Well, I found out I was pregnant. I went to the doctor and I'm like trying to do this like normal like first pregnancy appointment and the doctor comes over and I just start bawling crying and I'm like, I'm on drugs. Like I fucked up my kid. And so she was like, and it was interesting because she kind of was like, call a methadone clinic. And I was like, okay. And then my friend had kids and had been on drugs and she was like, don't do that. She was like, come down here and detox. And I was like, all right. So that was when I went to that place and they put me on Subutex and that didn't stick. And so she was born addicted. And so I knew when I went to the hospital, the child service was going to be there. So I was in outpatient treatment, doing it like virtually, and I knew child services were coming, and I was like, all right. And so I stayed in the hospital. And they wouldn't give me an epidural until I took a drug test. So
Oh,
finally,
wow.
and they induced me because she came like a week and some change late. And so they induced me, and after like 12 hours of being induced, I was like, all right, like, all right, I'll compromise for the epidural. I was like, all right, like, I've had enough of this.
Holy
And so they knew because I had her kind of like a year after COVID. It was still very COVID-y up there in Pennsylvania, so I had to pick one person to be in the room. I picked my mom, and so I think that, like, we've talked about my mom. I think that, like, my mom being in the room and hearing, like, "Okay, yeah, like, your granddaughter's being born on drugs," had to have been, like, the most heartbreaking thing in the whole world, I can
Mm.
imagine, and so she came out, and she was, like, healthy and good, and she went to the NICU for 3 weeks. I went home, child services came to my mom's house within 2 hours of me being discharged from the hospital, and,
wow.
yeah, they put me on, like,
Yeah.
we did, like, they call it, like, a family plan where, like,
Hmm.
I didn't lose custody, I didn't have to get removed from the house, but either, like,
It's
my
like
daughter's
mom
dad or my
parole.
yeah, it was, and I mean, I couldn't be alone with her,
Oh
which was
wow.
fine, like, someone was always home, so, like, they were like, "Okay, like, if your mom gets up to go to the bathroom, she has to take the baby, like, you can't watch the baby while she goes to the bathroom." And I was like,
Oh,
"Alright."
wow.
I was like, "Alright." And so but she came home after 3 weeks and she did fine, and, they say that, like, I don't think that we've seen any like, she wasn't a fussy baby. I didn't see anything that I was like, "Oh, I fucked my kid up, like, this is horrible," and I think that then it's, like, a question for me of, like, I'm, like, this ADHD queen, and, like, I hate hearing the word no, and I have my own, like, set of, like, character defects, and then now I have my kid that's, like, an ADHD queen and doesn't like hearing the word no and has her own set of character defects. And I'm like, sometimes I do think I'm like, okay, like, is this because I like genetically fucked you up or is this because drugs fucked you up? And like, I had a doctor sit me down the one time. They were like, you're never going to know. Stop driving yourself crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
This may be something I could look up on my own. Did they let you know how they go about the process of like weaning her off? Did they do like a buprenorphine taper
It
on an
was,
infant?
it was morphine, I think.
Well, okay, that makes
Don't hold
sense
me
because they
to
can
it.
do
It's been a
more of
while,
those.
but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Thank you for sharing that. I was really curious about that.
So
Um,
I want to, so, okay. So, um, I got clean. I got clean when she was 8 months old, so and I did outpatient therapy the whole time and, like, all this stuff, and so child services closed my case the day before my birthday, the year after she was born, so the whole case was, like, a 15-month process, but, like, child services closed the case, and I told her, I was like, "I wanna move home with my kid," and she was like, "I'm closing your case, you can do whatever you want with your kid, just don't use drugs," and I was like, "Alright,
oh,
cool."
oh yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, you don't have to go
Congratulations
into
on
too
that,
much
by
specifics.
the way. That's
Thank you.
you
Yeah,
beat the odds. A lot of people
absolutely.
like they don't make it out of that. So that's awesome to see here.
Well, that's amazing. I'm sure that's inspiring to so many people. And it's I'm still trying to build up this podcast. Like Instagram has more of a following than the podcast does so far, but hopefully one day, someone can hear this that's in a similar position or is going through the same shit or is feeling some wave of guilt or whatever or hopelessness about their child services case and they can hear this and then just realize how well you're doing now. Like you say you're working on 4 years clean. It'll be November, you
Yeah,
said?
next month. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Your daughter's healthy. Like you sound like a great mother. I'm so happy for you. That's
Thank you.
phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely. Um, So what is it? Do you go to recovery meetings? What has been the biggest thing that keeps you sober? Like I could assume based on everything you've said that like, the trauma and the fear and like the pain of what you went through, not wanting to go through that again, the victory of getting your daughter back and just loving her and wanting to be a good mother, but like I kind of want to hear it in your words or hear like, if there's other reasons what has helped you stay clean for this long to achieve pretty much, I think they say 5 years plus is considered long-term recovery, so you're almost there. What keeps you sober now, and do you do any sort of maintenance stuff like 12-step meetings, or do you have a higher power, or kind of walk us through that?
So I did outpatient therapy from like, I don't know, I think I started maybe like January the year after I got clean. So like end of November to January, I kind of just like, I don't even think I would have been like well enough to get on a meeting if I wanted to, you know what I mean? But I did outpatient therapy for like I think it was 2 years. 2 years. And then the only reason I stopped is because the treatment center closed. And I was so sad. I was like, oh my God, like even when I moved back home, she was like, you do it through Zoom anyway, just keep coming. And I was like, okay, thank you. And so I did that. I tried AA meetings when I first got clean. And I'm never gonna talk bad about someone's program. I personally didn't love it. Um
Mhm.
I don't know, sometimes I would leave a meeting and feel, like, icky, and I think that sometimes, like I was going to, like, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings because that was what had, like, childcare during the meeting, and so it kinda was tricky because I was like sometimes, like, people would be like, "Oh, like, I have 8 years clean, my drink of choice was champagne," and I'm like, "Ma'am, I had needles in my neck, like, 2 months ago, like, I cannot relate." Like, I'm like, "I cannot relate." Like, I'm like, "Please help
That's
me."
real
Like,
cool.
but I also was
That's
just
real
like I
cool.
feel like when you're, like, new recovery, you're just kinda like that new recovery, like, angsty anyway, so it probably was a me issue. But, um, I tried that, and I think that, like, the biggest thing I got from that was I got a sponsor, and we got through step 3. And she asked me about, like, the higher power thing, and I was like, "Well, like, I grew up going to church." I was like, I can, like, swallow the pill that God's my higher power." And I just like, I don't know, I found it to be, like, so helpful because she was like the way she broke down, like, "Is your life unmanageable?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "No, but really, like, is your life unmanageable?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, like, so I got, like, something out of it, but yeah, I think I got, like, my personal relationship with, like, my higher power got stronger as I got clean because I think that, like, um, something about, like, the way it all worked out for me is that it's, like it's and, like, I think that my sponsor at the time kinda helped me with this because like, okay, like, I made it through all the stuff I made it through okay, like, my daughter's healthy, like, it's hard to say for me that, like, there wasn't something, like, greater at play, like,
Mhm.
I can't just be the luckiest bitch in the world, you know what I mean? Like, that's not how that works. And I think, like, I've said, like, perfect storm, but it was, like, at the point that I got clean, like, my daughter was 8 months old, and so, not long after that, like, she's walking and, like, she was crawling, and so there was I don't know, like, there was no time to, like, feel bad for myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I went straight from, like, I'm getting high to, like, I'm trying to keep this kid alive, and, like, I think that, like, even now, it's like sometimes I'll be like, "Oh," it's interesting to me because like, I know I won't do opiates again. Like, I've told people, like, if I get in a car accident, like, beat me to the hospital and tell them, like, "No opiates, like, period, the end, like, I'm not playing this game, like, no." But then sometimes I'm like, "Oh, like, drink alcohol." And then I have to be like, "Who's gonna take care of your kid when you're, like, blackout drunk? Because I know if I drink, I'm gonna be blackout drunk." Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm. And then
And
get to
so
the other
it's
side,
like the
yeah.
kid keeps me busy and, like, I obviously don't wanna lose custody of my kid, which I'm not saying I would if I drink alcohol, right? Like, I'm not gonna lose custody of my kid, but, like, it's just not, like it's not worth, like, the risk I would take. Like, I love
Yeah,
the life I have now. I'm not gonna, like I feel guilty if I smoke a cigarette. Like, I'm not playing this game.
I
It
feel
is like
you.
a
I
weird
feel you.
feeling to go from like the chaos and the trauma of like what that lifestyle is like to when get some clean time under your belt, then fix a bunch of shit and rearrange your life. And it is like bewildering and disorienting sometimes, isn't it, to like go,
Yeah.
how am I here from where I was,
Oh.
and
Oh,
imagining going
yeah.
back to that place is like, you can't it's very feels very strange. And I wish there was a word for that, like the Japanese are very good at coming up with words for feelings. I feel like in English we don't really have that, but there is like a strange, very profound sense of like bewilderment that I feel sometimes when I look back at where I was and where I am now.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
going
think
through it right now.
it's and Luke, you can like you have like endless opportunities. I think that that's the thing for me is I like got clean and then I'm sitting there like looking at myself for like a couple months clean and I'm like, okay, like bitch, you're 25. You have a child. Like you spent the last however many years of your life doing like nothing productive. Like I remember I got my first job and I was like trying to like talk to the like the hiring manager and I was like, damn, like copying dope did not help me with my interview skills. And I couldn't like I'm like, what the fuck? Like I did myself no favors. And so I think that that first year clean for me was this really cool point and like I'm like, all right, like you gotta hit the ground running. Like you wasted enough time. And so like I did like I went to esthetician school in Pennsylvania, I got my esthetician license, I got my first job. It sucked. Like the job sucked. The hours were horrible, the pay was horrible, and I kind of like kept pushing through it. And I think that like I like don't do AA, but I know a lot of the like AA sayings from like outpatient therapy and like having friends in recovery and like they talk about taking the next right steps and things like fall in line and like that's exactly what happened for me. Like I feel like I kept making like the next right steps to like what I needed to do and it kind of like snowballed in this way that I would have never seen coming. And I mean like I said my dad like wrote me out of the will when I was getting high and now my dad is like my best friend and he's telling me he's like, "Okay, if I die, you got to sell this and then you got to sell this." And he's like, "You deal with everything if I die." And I'm like, "Whoa." Whoa, whoa." I'm like sometimes I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. How did we like I'm like, how do we get
Get
here?"
here.
Like
I mean, it's a testament to your willpower and the changes you've made. So people wouldn't trust you and feel like that they could put that kind of stuff in your hands if they didn't see you making remarkable, wondrous changes in your life. So and one of the things that I think is really sad, you talked about your interviewing process. It would be really nice if we lived in a world where you could walk into an interview and say, "Look at what the fuck I did. I was here and I got here." And that should be on your
yeah.
resume, right? Like very few people would be able to do what you did and what all of us here have done. And it just is kind of fucked up that we have to wear it almost like a secret badge, right? Like it is a shameful thing to go through addiction and stuff and stigmatized. And in reality, like the three of us here are like in a very small percentage group of people that were able to come out on the other side and have productive
Oh
lives
yeah.
again. So just don't ever let anyone try to take that away from you. Even if we, it is hard. It is hard to kind of get your life back in order, and you have to get that work history or whatever. Uh, you
Oh,
know.
so it's kind of for me like my dad hired me. And my dad has a company and he was like I think he saw me like thug it out at this horrible
Mm-hmm.
job and then one day was like, "Yeah, just come work with me." And I was like, "All right." And so now it's like it's just
That's what's
one of
up.
those like recovery blessings and I do agree with what you say. I think that people are kind of like ashamed to like be in recovery sometimes and like people are judgy and I for me I try and like stand on it. And I tell my daughter the same thing. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
like not that she you know what I mean on a different scale, but if she says something at school or does something at school and she kind of like gets in trouble for it, she'll get in the car and she'll be like, "No, mommy." And I'm like, "Okay, if you're going to do something and you're going to say something, you stand on it. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't like lie." And so I try to
And I'm
I know I'm
good.
anonymous, but I know I'm anonymous. So I'm not standing on it, but I think the anonymous is it's more for my daughter cuz that's
Oh
her
yeah.
business to tell, not mine. But like for me it's like, I really tried to like fuck my life up and then like I didn't and now but I try and like stand on that. Like I got track marks on my arms. Like it's not a secret if people look. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think we're at a pretty good point. Like I'm about ready to maybe wrap this up. I'll let Zoot ask any like ending questions he has, and then like I'll let you uh give it. I'll let you. I'm not. That sounds so weird. Like feel free to give any closing remarks or any like words of wisdom you want to give to anybody or anything you really want people to remember about your story. But I would say my last question for you would be, what do you think Kensington is going to look like in 10 years? And what do you think, if there is one, what do you think the solution to a place like Kensington is? Because that in and of itself is a microcosm of the larger drug issue in this country and this world.
That's a good question, and I I'm not qualified to answer. I think that like I think it's one of those things. I think it's got to be like a team effort because I know that like in Kensington specifically, like the residents of Kensington hate it. Like they're like, "Get your junky ass off my front porch. Like stop shitting in my driveway. Like stop." And I get that. You know what I mean? So I think it's gonna have to be like a whole community government like addict like I don't know. I have no idea what that would look like, but I hope whatever it is that they do, there's, like, humility and humanity involved.
Great answer. No, I appreciate that.
So what's next for you, I guess, would be the question I have. We heard about where you came from and this, like, what you went through. What's next for your story?
I don't know. I want to keep being a mom, and work take steps to I said, like, getting high didn't help me with, like, job interviews. It didn't really help me being a mom either, you know what I mean? Like, I hate conflict, and so sometimes, like, she'll be like, "Can I have 2 popsicles?" And I'm like, "Sure, if you, like, shut up and stop crying." Like, "Yeah, I have 2 popsi," and it's, like, long run, like, not helping me, so kinda what I'm working on now is try to, like I find that, like, these, like, character defects I have, I see in her, and so she's, like, shining this light on, like, "Yeah, you're really bad with boundaries." So I'm kinda like, "Alright, like, how do we lay some boundaries where, like, we're getting along?" You know what I mean? Like, how do I, like so I think my big focus now is trying to, like, get this kid to be, like we're trying to get ready for kindergarten. Like, I've been
Nice.
clean long enough, and she's old enough that, like, we're about to go to kindergarten, like, what? What? So, trying to get
Crazy.
just keep doing the mom thing and see where my, like, career life goes, see where my dad and I go with work, and
Well, that's a
keep
challenge that you
going.
should, from based on what you've already been through, you should be able to tackle that no problem. I think one of the things that I personally deal with, um, and that I'm trying to fix about myself is, when you go through the stuff that we've gone through, and like being alive is enough, and
Yeah.
just like being able to like absorb the like really small pleasures in life feels like sometimes like the most I could I couldn't be more gracious for it. And so that can kind of feel like complacency sometimes, because when you're like, well, I'm just happy to be here, right? Like you don't really have a drive to do, to go farther and push yourself. So, I I find that I like, have to really encourage myself to, yes, it's great you're alive here and should hold on to that gratitude or whatever, but don't rest on it, and like, try to I keep try to push myself forward. So I totally
You make,
understand,
like, a sh you should make a goals list. Like, write
sure.
it down. Think about what
Yeah,
you
and
wanna
I've
do.
ADHD with ADHD or whatever. I definitely
Stepping
think
stone.
lists help me. So
One of my long-term goals would be to start my own detox, rehab, sober living, like treatment center that offers all level of care one day. And yeah, I could say confidently, if that ever when that comes to fruition, I would love to have you be like the director of like the women's side. I feel like you could help so many women, and they could
Oh my
relate
gosh,
to you.
please
You
do.
have
I've
have an
said before,
indomitable
like,
spirit.
I would love to like, I haven't looked into how to do this at all, so, but I'd love to offer some sort of program that helps people who have struggled with, like, homelessness or, like, addiction, like figure out how to, like, step into the workforce because it sucks, but you have to work,
Mhm.
but, like and I think that, like, that was my big thing is, like, I used to, like, scream, like, "I'll never get a job, no one's gonna hire me," and it kept me in this, like, panic circle, and now it's like I have a job and I go to work meetings and, like, I get up and, like you know what I mean? And so I'd love to start some sort of, like, program where I'm, like, helping people do that, like, "Yes, let's, like, look at a resume," like, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, so, yes, Luke, keep me in mind as you move forward with
I
your
will.
endeavors.
Just applied to an admissions coordinator position for a company that works with six rehabs, and it's like I would be people Google if they Google one of those six rehabs, they're like, "Oh, fuck!" They're like, "Yo, I really need help. I need to go to detox." Hopefully, if I get the job, I'd be like, "All right, cool, let's get you set up, buddy. Hell yeah, where you want to go?" Like, I'll keep y'all posted on that. But yeah, I want to work in the treatment industry. I think that's going to be a good trajectory for me to help me stay sober, help me stay on this right
yeah,
path. And I love talking to addicts, man, and former addicts. I believe for myself, like once an addict, always an addict. But I'm transitioning over from like calling myself an addict, be like, no, like I'm someone in recovery. I'm someone that has struggled with drugs and alcohol most of my life, but now I'm on, it's a new chapter, baby. Hell yeah.
Luke, I love that for you.
I think you'd be great at
Thank
that.
you.
I think, and
Thank
I,
you.
I
Yeah.
think outreach and like service to others is like a huge part of
Mhm.
recovery. I think once you get to that place, it is a great way to keep recovery in the forefront of your mind. It's so that you never slip back to that place. And to like, we talked about this last episode is like taking those like horrible experiences you went through and the bad decisions you made and turning them into a positive by like helping others through your
Mhm.
insights and the guidance and trying to help prevent them from going through maybe some of the things you went through. And I think the recovery stuff is all great, but I think too at the end of the day I'm left thinking with like, what do we do to start preventing people from getting there in the first place? And it seems like maybe it's a little too early with the way the epidemic is going to like focus on that. We got to stop the bleeding first, I think. But I would like to maybe see us as a society someday be able to try to work towards like preventing like some of this illness from ever like
Yeah. 'Cause
starting.
Dare didn't work. Dare made me interested in drugs. Dare had me Googling. Dare had me on Arrowhead at a young age.
I
Trying to figure out who
I got
can
I
do.
won we all wrote papers for Dare and mine was selected
Oh,
and I
you,
got
you
when we all
won the
graduated from Dare. I won and I got to read my essay about the Dare program out to the whole auditorium of people, and my parents bought me Linkin Park's second album Meteora as a reward for that. It's how old I
Let's go.
am. So and then look where I ended up after that. So yeah,
Yeah,
Dare
I want
was
to get the
horribly
statistics of like
unsuccessful.
I want the statistics of how many of the Dare champions, like the certificate winners, how many of those kids ended up actually being like, butter drunk needle junkies later in
Dude,
life.
I would love to know that too.
I
All
didn't do
right,
Dare.
well,
I did never get to do it. I can't blame my problems on Dare.
great, yo. Thank you guys so much for an amazing, amazing discussion, amazing episode. Like, Em, do you have any closing statements or anything you wanna say before we wrap this up?
No, I just if you're struggling, like no matter how far down you think you are, you can always get back up. There is always a way
Mm,
back up and out. And thank you guys for having me and chatting with me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. This was really, really great to talk to you.
100%. All right, we're good. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're listening, and for next week, I will have a microphone, so you won't have to deal with this poor audio on my end. Yeah, bless up, shout out, and gang gang.